Welcome to today's podcast episode. Today we have two very special guests, Khai Tran and Johnathan Khai. Both are co-founders of Penji, a creative solution for fast-growing businesses and agencies who need a dedicated design team but don't like the high cost of in-house or the headaches of freelancers. Today, we're going to explore whether or not you should start a business in 2024, hot topics surrounding AI, and where you're supposed to be spending your marketing dollars. My name is Shannon, and I am Penji's partnership coordinator. Let's get started. What do you both think? Is 2024 a good or bad time to start a business?
I think 2024 is by far the best year to start a business, period. Simply because there's now access to AI that at one point in time was very rarely accessible. But in addition to that, the accessibility of knowledge, the accessibility of information, the internet, social media, the ability to get a client without ever meeting them. I think it's no better time than now to start a business. The only thing that I would be cautious of is, in addition to the information, in addition to the access, is actually what to do with that information. So it's very easy. We all do it. We go home, we scroll through the internet, and we read things, we view things. And although that can be helpful for your business, I would strongly recommend that whatever it is that you read, whatever it is that you see, don't necessarily apply that to whatever it is that you're doing. There are a lot of influencers out there that show you how to make a quick dollar, or they promote themselves as millionaires, or how to make $1 million in 2-3 days. And I can tell you right now that most likely that is very not true and very far from the truth. Entrepreneurship, business, building an agency is incredibly difficult. And to think that you can do that in 1 to 3 days is just a bold-faced lie. So sure, if anything, I would actually recommend to create content and document yourself building your business rather than watching other people build theirs.
2024, I would say, is possibly the best time to start your business because, as we all know, AI has really started to take shape this year. Now, in 2023, when AI started making its way into a lot of softwares that we commonly use, it was still in its infantile stage. And so I would say there was a lot of experimenting and testing. So that was not a good time because AI wasn't up to the task for you to reliably use for your business just yet. But this year, a lot of those AI tools have actually gotten really good. And as a matter of fact, we're using them ourselves at Penji to help automate a lot of the mundane tasks. In addition to that, there are a lot more online services available to help augment, if anything, offset a lot of the payroll costs that you as a first-time business owner would have had to pay. One of those examples, and I hate to pitch ourselves, is actually Penji. Before, you would have to hire an in-house designer or deal with a lot of freelancers hiring, firing the right fit. It's a time-consuming process to find creatives who could actually work side by side with you to build your brand, to create your marketing materials. A lot of those costs can actually now be offset by services such as what we offer at Penji, where it's a dedicated team, etc. We're not alone in this space, obviously, so whatever your business needs are, there are likely online services that can help fulfill those exact roles, but without the high cost of payroll.
In 2024, the first thing that I would do is literally outsource everything when it comes to production. So if you're in the design space or in the marketing space like we are, the first thing I would do is hire a service like Penji. If I was in consulting space, I would hire an executive of some sorts or an outsourced type of email marketer. Literally outsource as much as you possibly can once you're able to get yourself off the ground. Once you're there, then I would go back to sales. Whatever you can do to free up your time, do anything you possibly can to free up your space, to free up your mindset so you could focus on driving sales for the business.
What kinds of industries do you guys think will thrive this year?
E-commerce, absolutely e-commerce. In addition, when I say e-commerce, I don't necessarily mean clothing. I don't necessarily mean, the traditional means of e-commerce, microtransactions, but I also do say actual e-commerce, clothing and things like that. With the way that ads are running, Instagram, Facebook ads in particular, where you're constantly getting that connectivity between yourself and the brand, retarget marketing is just so precise now, it's scary. In addition to that, I think microtransactions for knowledge. So things like how to improve your health, how to improve your business, how to improve a PDF of some sorts. Any type of accessibility to knowledge or information, I think is going to be huge in 2024 and beyond. And one of the best things about all of that, selfishly speaking, of course, is all of those things need graphic design to sell. But that's such a selfless promotion, but short answer is e-commerce.
I think industries that are going to thrive this year, most likely it's going to be cybersecurity. Shannon, did you hear about the story about a woman who received a prank call? A scammer gave her a call and told her that they have kidnapped her daughter. I believe she has like a teenage daughter or something. They kidnapped her, and the scammer even had the voice of her daughter on the phone screaming, and then said, "If you have to send money to us right now, otherwise we're going to hurt your daughter." So obviously, out of panic, she sent the money right away, only to find her daughter upstairs in her room like 10 minutes later. So what scammers are able to do now is actually, with the help of AI, they're able to recreate voices. They can recreate you. There's actually a really interesting software called Synthesia, where you can actually create like a one-to-one virtual avatar of yourself, talking, giving podcasts and such. So I think cybersecurity is probably going to skyrocket this year to combat a lot of the damages that AI could cause. Another industry that I think would do really well this year is actually pet services. So if you want to open like a brick and mortar services, consider pet services. And here's why. There was a statistic, I believe about like 52 to 56% of millennial adults are choosing not to have children. Instead, they're choosing to have pets. Because of course, the rising cost of the economy, rising cost of living has actually made it very difficult for a lot of young adults to have their own families. So a lot of young adults are actually resorting to having pets instead. So you might see a lot more pet stores or just pet services floating around.
Khai, the thing that you said about that mother is insane. I feel like that is something that my grandma would definitely fall for. So it's very concerning that people can imitate your voice like that. How do you guys think AI takes a role in small businesses and agencies now, or how it will?
I mean, the role that AI plays in small business owners is absolute paramount. I mean, the things that I personally use AI for, suggestions on ad copy, suggestions on job descriptions, suggestions on different angles of questions that are received by team members, right? There are a lot of situations where you receive a question on social media or you receive a question even via Slack, and your first initial reaction is to respond to it. It might be helpful for you to actually import that question into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT how you should respond. Now, of course, I would never recommend to take that answer, and I would never recommend to actually take the answers that are given for ads and social content and all that fun stuff. But I think it could actually give you a leg up. So for example, you read a headline, you can easily take that headline and make it better. So even if you use AI, even if you use ChatGPT, even if you use whatever AI service, personally, I think you will always, always, always have to have a human involved in some capacity to make the modifications, to make your response or whatever it is that you do more human.
One major role that I think AI is going to play for a lot of small businesses, especially agencies, is the speed in which you can scale your business. Now, if you go back to like the 1960s, right, it would take much longer for a business to go from, let's say, making $100,000 a year to $1 million a year. Nowadays, with AI, I mean, social media and just the internet as a whole has made it much faster for you to rapidly grow your business. But AI is definitely going to greatly accelerate that, given a lot of the higher level skills can actually be accomplished by AI now. Like as you were talking, digital marketing, copywriting, design, programming, things that would normally take a high skill person to do, AI can actually do that very quickly and also affordably. Now, another thing, so there's an interesting story. However, there is a major cost with that. And what I'm expecting is actually a lot of these softwares and services that we're using, we can expect their cost to go up because AI is not free. For those of you who don't know, a lot of these services, they don't actually have their own AI. They have to actually borrow AI from OpenAI, Gemini, or other third parties AI out there. And every time you use an AI function in any one of these software, there is a real tangible cost that goes with that. So what I think might happen is, although the cost to run your business is going to be reduced, the cost for these services could actually go up.
What are some things you guys think are worth the money for small businesses and what are not?
Shannon, thank you so much for asking this. This is by far the easiest question that you've asked all day. What's worth it? Human capital. What's not worth it? I would say essentially everything else. And even I'd go as far as saying subscription type of SaaS services, software. In the very beginning of my entrepreneurship career, I'd say I found myself always trying to find that next best thing. I would use services, I would sign up for things. I would spend a ton of money trying to find a way to optimize my life. I can assure you that every single service that I've ever purchased in the very beginning, I don't use, and I use all free services, things like Notion, Trello, and a bunch of like Apple apps that are baked into my iPhone. Those are the things that essentially all you need to run your business. Now, when it comes to the necessary things, as I mentioned before, human capital is by far the most important thing that you can spend money on. Building a really, really strong team, having a really good culture fit is by far the single leading driver to any great business. And I'm sure that you could look back in other videos that are being recorded by amazing entrepreneurs, and they all say the same thing. A strong team is what's going to drive a business, is going to help you succeed.
Agreed. Definitely agree. What I think is absolutely worth the money is branding. Now, let me ask you something. What is the difference between one company you decide to buy versus another company that you choose not to buy, especially when you're shopping online? A lot of it comes down to their branding, their websites, their ads, how they present themselves. You don't actually know how big these companies are or how good their products or services are. So companies that invest a lot in branding, oftentimes you can see it visually, and we make our buying decisions on branding a lot more than we might think. So what I would do is, if you are a brand new company, put some money towards branding. Don't actually wing it with your logo. It's probably not worth it in the long run. The cost of rebranding is actually a lot more expensive than just getting it done at least moderately good the first time around. The second thing that I think is always worth the money, and I want to speak directly to the owners, the founders of the company, meal prep services. Oh my God, that's been an absolute game changer for me. Now, I'm not going to mention any names here because I don't want to, accidentally sponsor anybody. But do yourself a favor, go online and just try and sign up for a bunch of meal prep services. The amount of time that it saves me from shopping, cooking, and just having something readily available, like I'm ready to go early in the morning. Those are two things that are worth the money every time: branding and meal prep.
I want to add on top of that. When you said branding, it kind of hit home, and I like to use this analogy. If you were to go to a business meeting and you were to sit down with a major CEO to pitch them your business, if you were to dress in sweats or if you were to dress in a hoodie, sure, you might look cool, you might look trendy. I can almost guarantee you that people on the other end are not going to take you seriously. But if you were to wear a suit, the same rules apply when it comes to business. Think of your logo, think of your brand, think of your color palette as that suit. So the question is, are you wearing a hoodie or would you like to wear a suit?
Facts. Now, let's talk about what's absolutely not worth the money. What do you think, John? What are some things you definitely don't think are worth the money?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of said it a little bit earlier, but I just think a lot of the apps, a lot of the services, I think there's so many services out there that you can just get engrossed in because you think that this service can ultimately solve a large problem. And the fact of the matter is that most likely it could temporarily, but I don't think a lot of the service that exist out there that are paid can do that. Now, of course, there are going to be outliers. Of course, there are going to be, things, but I'm talking to the business owner that is just getting started. Most likely that service that you're about to spend money on, especially if it doesn't involve human capital, it most likely isn't going to be worth it because there's so much access to free services. There's so much access to free things. I can almost guarantee you that those free things are going to be more beneficial to your business now, and most likely you'll still use them in the future.
You know what's another mistake that new companies make is that they spend so much time and money to look like a business instead of actually investing all that time and resources into becoming a business. I'll give you an example. A lot of first-time founders will get an expensive office. They're going to try to get the best furniture, really nice chairs, nice couches, etc., and also expensive business cards. All these things to look the part. But the thing that they neglect most is what? Customer service. Actually delivering a good service or a good product to your customer should be 80% of where your money and time goes. So if you're a first-time founder, please get rid of the nonsense. Stop thinking about how to look like a business, but actually be a business.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that you could do in a business that's free without actually spending $1 is once you get a customer, talk to them every single day and then ask that person to refer you to at least 1, 2, or 10 other people. That's in fact actually how Penji grew to some degree. We did a poll, we asked people, we said, hey, if we build it, will you buy it? And here we are talking in front of a podcast and a camera.
And I want to add a bit more to that as well. So besides the financial cost, there's the cost of time that a lot of first-time founders don't think about. Where do you spend your time the most throughout the day? Besides the financial cost, there's also the cost of time that a lot of first-time founders don't really think about. When you first start your company, where do you spend most of your time? Probably not where you're supposed to. And here's where I think our time should be spent. Sales, marketing, and talking to your customers so you understand what's working and what's not working. Stop spending time on social media. Actually, where I see a lot of founders waste a lot of time is trying to be everywhere all at once. You don't actually have to have a Facebook account, a Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You don't actually need to be on all these platforms. It's much better for you to just focus on one platform, really build yourself out, and build a credible following on that instead.
What's changed in the digital marketing landscape, and how should business owners and agencies adapt to these changes?
To be fair, not much has actually changed in the landscape of digital marketing, business. I would say attention has absolutely changed because now there are even more platforms for a small business owner or an agency to necessarily be on. And I would say for me, as a sales and support type of role, my biggest regret in business is to stop posting on LinkedIn and to stop posting on social media. There was a period of about a year or so where I just simply stopped because I was too focused on growing the business. I was too focused on talking to team members, growing the internal sides, that I neglected things like social media. And I would say that the one thing that has changed but hasn't changed at the same time is if you are to do it, focus on one thing, focus on one platform, get really good on it, understand the algorithm, and then slowly but surely migrate to other channels. And that's going to be like the silver bullet. I think at the time I was averaging like several thousands of impressions on a daily basis. And all I was doing is just recording silly videos on LinkedIn specifically. And it translated really well in the business world. I'm sure it would have translated in YouTube as well. I just wasn't organized. And it was a mistake that I made. And I definitely, there are times where I do regret it.
There are 3 things that has changed forever in the digital landscape. Number 1, it is now much easier to join any space that you want and create a business thanks to AI and automation. Number 2, because AI has now entered the space and it is so much easier to actually have AI do a lot of the work for you, the people you would have normally hired, such as writers, designers, developers, the creative folks, the requirement for their skills is now much higher because they're competing against AI. And what that means for you as a small business owner or as an agency is, well, number 1, AI can do a lot of the grunt work for you, so you don't have to hire as many people. Number 2, the people that you do hire, you can have a much higher expectations for their skill level because they have to be much better than the AI that's trying to take their job. The third thing that has changed and will never be the same again is actually the way in which we search for things. There's no mystery. Nowadays, people are starting to ask ChatGPT and ask AI questions instead of searching it on Google. So people very slowly are going to stop looking at a digital screen to get answers for simple questions. They're just going to ask instead. Now that may make marketing and advertising a bit more challenging, but that's the digital landscape that you have to evolve into.
I think like a pro tip would be if I had a product or a service and an established brand, I would actually create a secondary brand and have it not necessarily related to the business at all, but have a name that's very similar to the industry that you're in. So for example, if I'm selling shoes or lifestyle, I would absolutely create a secondary lifestyle channel and build that channel from the ground up. And there are so many ways to use AI. There are so many ways to use graphic design that you can easily create videos, create content without anybody ever seeing your face. And there's a big trend where the faceless type of videos. I think those things do so well. It doesn't do well for me, but it does well for the masses. And I think if you were to create a channel that's completely faceless, that gets thousands and hundreds and thousands of views on a daily basis, you can then use that audience to fuel your existing business. And now your audience has grown from 0, because you're just starting out, to several thousands. Just imagine the impact that I can produce on sales.
Thank you guys for listening and or watching our podcast. And thank you, Khai and Johnathan, for being on. If you guys enjoyed our content and would like to see more, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.